Morning everybody, it's Becca at So Darn Twisted, obviously. Today is my second collage tutorial for junk journaling. Today we're going to deal with a more block type of collage. Last time we did a blended shabby chic collage, so today is going to be more of the kind of document letter style ones that you see, and how to do it yourself. So as in the previous video, so if you've already watched that one, don't worry, you'll probably just want to skip ahead because you already know what I'm going to tell you here. If you're joining me for the first time, so when I'm creating collage, I like to go through and divide all of my elements up. So obviously they're pretty self-explanatory. Anything like this will have, written text things, just things like that. And documents obviously are things like, postcards and envelopes, receipts, that kind of thing. Technically they could be joined together really, I suppose, but I'm finicky. Decorative elements, you've got things like clocks, bows, ornaments, that kind of thing. Flowers, again, pretty obvious, speaks for itself, and so do the rest of them. And as you can see, I've got quite a few here. Well, all of these ones actually came from the Graphics Fairy, which I won't be using all of those or even most of those, but if you're not already aware, if you are using things from the Graphics Fairy, you need to make sure that you're not using more than 6 if you plan to use it commercially. So if you're making yourself a collage to sell, you can't use more than 6 of any of the Graphics Fairy's designs in one design, or anything like that, one design set. So yeah, just do bear that in mind. But she does absolutely fantastic work with things that I am far too lazy most of the time to do myself. So yeah, so that's that one. So the first thing you're going to need to do is you're going to have to choose your background for your piece. You won't see much of it. A lot of the time you may not see any of it at all, but sometimes I leave bits of the background poking through, and I like to know that I've got some, it's basically backup, for this kind of one. It's a bit of backup. It's knowing you've got something there, or because you might choose as you go along, we're going to use that one. You might choose as you go along to just go, okay, I'm going to have, bits of that showing through kind of thing, which is obviously great. So there's my background that I'm going to go with. Now, the next thing I suggest that you do after that is to get the bulk of what you're going to be using. So in this case, the bulk of it is going to be documents. So what I want to do now is basically just have a little look through and see what documents I might want to use. So, because I tend to pull out way more than I know I'm going to want. Right, so we're going to kick that out of the way, and then to make this easy to see what you have and where, let's just change that. There we go. The colour mode, which I won't get into colour modes, but basically the colour mode was wrong on it because it was a GIF file and it's all just a big thing, don't worry. So okay, because I've opened an awful lot there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell my Windows to match zoom on all of my files, and then to, oh, it would help if I got it in the right place, and then to tile them for me. Right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to change the colour of my background, because I don't actually want it to be pink, or not quite so baby pink anyway. To get to that screen, by the way, I just hit my F key, and that just takes me into this version of a full screen mode, so I don't have to keep pulling panhandles around and stuff like that. So to change our background colour, you've got a couple of options. You can go onto your hue saturation, which is by far the easiest way to do it, and you can just drag it around and get it kind of where you want it to be. So I'm going to go for that kind of creamy kind of beige colour, and then just by up in the saturation, that gets me to there. I might just bring it back ever so slightly. There we go. So that's that. And you can just leave that there, that's fine. So, because it also means that once you've got everything else on, if you want to adjust that, you still can, because that is still there as a separate entity. This is what we call, in the Photoshop retouching world, we call this non-destructive editing. And that means that we never ever put anything onto that layer permanently. We leave it alone. You'll also see a lot of people will duplicate that layer and then put everything on that one layer. Don't do that either. That is, again, very, very difficult to then edit things later on. The way that I will show you to work is to put everything into individual layers and into groups and the like, which are very, very simple. Don't be afraid. And it just means that at any point you can go in and change something, an individual element that otherwise you would not have been able to change easily at all. So anyway, we've got that covered. So now I'm just going to drag across some things. Now if you find that you have this white border, that's absolutely fine. I will show you how to get rid of that. So you need your rectangular marquee tool, which is hotkey M. Any of the tools that I show you, if you want to know what key to press on your keyboard to just call up that tool, it will be there. Most of the tools, I hasten to add. But yeah, move tool, that's a V, you know. And if you want to switch between, say, your options here, you hold down Shift. So if I hold down Shift and M now, it will change that to the circle. Press it again, back to the rectangle. Anyway, there you go. So then we're just going to kind of take it just inside the area that we actually want, and then we're going to invert our selection, which to do that you're going to go to select and inverse, or you can use Command Shift and I, which will do the same thing. Then you're just going to hit your backspace key whilst being on the actual layer. There we go. You have to actually be on the layer. That helps. And then we're just going to drop that selection by hitting Apple D, Command D, which I think is Control. I am working on Windows, but for the duration of the, sorry, I am working on a Mac, but for the duration, anything that I say the Command or Apple key will refer to, I believe, the Control key on a Windows system. It has been about 16 years maybe since I've used a Windows system, so yeah, I don't know anymore. Completely forgotten. Okay, so we're just going to kind of pop that roughly in place, and we're going to just change the size of it a little bit. There we go. And if you do change the size of it, either hit your enter key or that little tick up there, and that will apply the transformation. Okay, so we're going to come back out of there now. That one is in. So we will now close that one. Don't need it anymore. This helps you keep track of what you've used. Well, let's throw that one over there. So again, I'm just going to F into that. And again, I'm going to get rid of the white excess around the outside. You can do it on the individual files should you want to, but it's just as easy to do it this way, and you can often see clearer anyway because it's already on your background. You can see what you will see, you know, of the image. So again, we're just going to change the size a bit and plonk it up there. These are not the final locations. These are just where I'm putting things roughly for now. Now, if you've got something that's got multiple things on it, like this one does, if you've watched the other tutorial, you already know what I'm going to tell you here. If you have not, then here we go. So I'm going to take my rectangular marquee tool. I am going to drag that there. I am going to double F to bring that back. And then I'm going to hold down my command key over, and you see that pair of scissors that pops up there? That means that it's going to just cut that piece and it's going to drag it over there for me. I'm then just going to use my free transform to bring that in to a size that I want it to be. And then that, as it has no background, you can leave it with background showing through, which again, ideal if you've got a pattern background, but if you don't like it, I'll show you how to just quickly fix that as well. Most of these don't have lower opacity, most are actually solid, but this one is so that you can overlay it onto a pattern of your choice. That is the exact reason that the person who did this did it that way. So again, we're going to hold down our command key and just drag it over to our canvas. Command T and bring it down to a reasonable size. Okay, that will do. Right, so I think we have all we want there, don't we? So let's show you how to make that to have a solid background. Okay, so you can see that that's just this layer here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here and tell it to create me a new blank layer. I am going to go onto the file. I'm going to drag my selection around it. So what I'm going to do with that selection active, I'm going to hit my G button, which will take me to my paint bucket tool, or if it takes you to the gradient tool, which is the other option for the paint bucket, just remember to hit your shift key. So if I hit shift G and come out of that, it will take me to a gradient tool, which you can see just up here. But no, I want that. And then if you hit your Alt key, you'll see you get a little pin, a little dropper there, which allows you to just sample a colour. And then we're just going to drag that underneath there, and then we're just going to merge those two together. Now the easiest way to do that, if it's a layer that you're on top of, like this one, so if we just sort of clear those out of the way a minute, you can see that you've got that one and then that one is straight underneath it. You can just hit Command E and that will just make it into one layer for you, or you can just go onto your right click, which is way more difficult to do, and merge down. Okay, so there you go. That's how you can make that non-transparent but still have the complementary colour that you would expect to have on that design. So that's nice and easy. The other one, I think I'm probably going to leave the other one transparent because I think it will actually look really, really nice. Just kind of hovered over the middle of something. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to undo what I did here, just briefly. And I'm actually going to just duplicate that one onto its own transparent background. So I should have done that first, shouldn't I? But I didn't know I was going to want to do it, so you know what you're going to do. Okay, so this is the process of design, unfortunately, is that every now and again your brain just kind of goes, oh, but what if you were to do this? And you go, oh, okay, do I have to? Okay. Right, so we're just going to Command D to drop that selection. Now it's really a case of just quickly deciding what you want where, and do you want it all facing the same way. Personally, I don't want it all facing the same way, so I'm just going to go ahead, I'm going to get my V tool to move, and then as you can see, if I bring it round there, it gives me the rotate option. and if I hold down my shift key it will rotate it in angles for me, so I know that that is now a perfect 90 degrees. And I'm going to bring that one over here somewhere, I think, and then return to apply that. This one I think I'm going to turn in the opposite direction completely, except for I forgot to hold down my shift key, and then I'm going to have that one just kind of in the middle there. I think that's kind of nice. Let's have that one, and we will turn that one this way as well. Then the beauty of this is you can now decide what you want on top and what you want below as well. So, you know, this is basically a kind of a shuffling around process, you know, because you're going to want stuff that overlaps multiple things. You're not going to want them to all just be together and looking all sort of, you know, fabulously the same. Oh, clicked on the wrong one there, didn't I? So let's just bring that round to there, and we'll kind of, and then you can also just take bits. I'll show you how to take bits in a minute. I'm desperately trying, and I do apologise. I'm trying really hard to stay in teach mode and not just excitable design mode. Because let me tell you, that's not always easy. It's, you know, obviously it becomes, as I was saying in one of the other tutorials, it becomes a kind of a muscle memory situation, you know, that you kind of go, well, yeah, but, you know, I'm just doing it automatically. So what I'm going to do on that one is, because I want a small piece, but I don't want to lose all of it by just dragging it off the canvas. So I'm just going to use my rectangular marquee, select the bottom half, and then I'm just going to Apple J. And that, what that will do, as you can see there, is it just puts that part onto another layer completely for me there, which I can then, you know, move around. Let's take it that way, I think, and then we can have the stamp sticking up. So that's a, you know, just an easy trick if you want to use all parts of it, but you don't want the whole part where you're currently positioning that, you know, which is fine. Oh, I did not actually merge that. That's because I went back and changed it, didn't I? Yes. There we go. So yeah, it's just a nifty way of being able to do that. And all I'm doing here is I'm just getting hold of that layer and dragging it above, so I know it's going to sit on top of that one, which is what I want. And I just want to be able to see some of that stamp sticking out the top there. This one, I think I'm just going to kind of drag it over there somewhere. You know, that looks kind of nice. And this one, yeah, just sort of there is good. I'm going to pull that one over there out of the way for a minute. Okay, so that's how we're looking so far. So now comes the beautiful part, and this is where you will effectively just right click, duplicate your layer. Yes, we're just going to call it that. You can name them, of course you can absolutely name them, but it's not necessary. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of use parts that you can't see because they're covered by other things, and use them within that to fill the gaps. Basically, that's all you're doing now, is gap filling. So I'm just going to drag this down until it's filling the gap I want to. So as you can see, it's all very simple. It's all wonderfully easy. So what have we got on that one? Now I don't really want to take more of that one, if I'm honest. Okay, you know, there's not really many more there that I would want to duplicate. And that does just come down to what you chose, obviously, you know, at the beginning. So if you find like that, you know, you've got some gaps, go and find a couple of bits that you haven't used, you know, from your initial pull out, and just grab hold of them. And then we're good to go, kind of thing. think I used those. I don't remember using that one, and I don't remember using that one. But if I did, well, I did. Okay, grab those, and then just... Alright, so as you can see, that one is a little bit wonky, isn't it? So I'm going to teach you a wonderful little cheat here, guys. I swear to God, Photoshop professionals all over the world are going to hate me. Okay, so what I've gone and done here is I've got my ruler tool, okay? And I'm going to drag from one corner, so I'm going to hold, and I'm going to drag to the other corner. And if I go to image rotation and choose arbitrary, it will rotate to the exact degree of that line. Now, this won't always be perfect, because if the document is quite misshapen, sometimes it will be that, you know, one of the other sides of it are really wonky, so it won't. This has done a reasonable enough job for what we want to do today, because now we can just grab our rectangular marquee tool, bring it over and get rid. Oh, but if your background layer is doing that with that little lock, sorry, you just have to remove that lock first. There we go. So that will just give you that then. So if they're on the wonk, as we say here, it's on the wonk, we're going to just fix that. And I'm just going to drag that up over a couple of the other pieces, just see where... Don't want it to be over that one completely, but there is good. Yeah, okay, there is good. Alright, so we can now get rid of that one. If you plan to use any of the elements for more than one thing, you know, then absolutely, if you do something like that where you straighten it and you get rid of the white background, and you just save it, you know, that's fine. I didn't want to actually get rid completely of the what's the word? What word am I looking for here? The edges, the raggedy edges. That was all kind of wonky. I wanted to keep that for another thing, so I didn't bother to save it, but you absolutely can. Alright, so we're just going to take that one, and we are going to invert, delete as before, drop the selection, and then free transform to put it wherever we want it to go. It's a little bit too large to just... If I bring a bit behind there, there we go, that will do it. That's nice. So then really I've just got that one little gap up there to fill, which I could steal a bit of that one from, or I could steal a bit from that one. In fact, I'm going to steal from this one. So I'm going to use my selection tool, and I'm just going to take a piece that I want, and again hit my command key till I get my little scissors, and I'm just going to drop it up there. And then, because I don't want it to be in front of all the other pieces, I'm just going to drag it. So that'll do, won't it? We'll have that little, should we have that little bit sticking out there? Yeah, why not? Okay, now I know it feels like that was such a really long task, but that's just because you're just learning it for the first time. If I was just doing this without showing you guys, you know, and stopping to tell you about things, I'd have done that in a matter of, you know, maybe 5 to 10 minutes kind of thing. So once you get the hang of it, it becomes so quick, so easy, and you know, you really don't have to worry. It's not going to take that long every time, I promise. So what I'm doing here is I'm just, if I can see any white edges, I'm just using my move tool and just my arrow keys to nudge, you know, so that it goes behind the, or sorry, off the edge of the canvas. And now that one, I think I'm actually going to put that over there now to just kind of break that line up a little bit as well. So at this point, we're going to save it. At this point, we probably, if you've got an unstable system, save it way before now. Way before now. Because otherwise you're gonna cry. So I'm just going to save it there in here, and I'm just going to call it collage too, because I already had a collage one somewhere for the tutorial folder. Now, you have an option. You can either leave that completely as it is. Well, you've got a couple of options now. You can either leave it completely like it is, or you can go ahead and, as I mentioned earlier on, you can change some of the colours so that it ties in, especially if you're just trying to go for like a sort of creamy vintage look, for example. Then what I would do here is I would click on the one I want with my move tool, so it selects that layer for me down here. I'm then going to go into my adjustments tab there, and I'm going to choose hue and saturation. And then what I'm going to do is, and first of all I'll show you what happens if you don't do what I'm about to do. So if I try to change that, you see how it just changes absolutely everything. Well, we don't want that. We want it to just change that one thing. So if you hold down your Alt key and you hover between the layers, you see that little thing that pops up there? We're going to do that. Now, when I change that, it's only going to affect that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to knock down the saturation slightly, and I'm just going to change the hue and take it away from the pink and more into the sort of browny orangey side of things over there. So now that fits in beautifully. So that's method one. So now if we go into this one, the other way that you can do this is, again, we're going to go and get a hue saturation layer, and again we're going to link it to this one. But this time, this one's just mainly really pink. So if it's got other colours that you want left alone, you know, then you can absolutely just kind of go onto your magentas and just desaturate them a little bit. Oh no, that's going to want to be on the reds now, isn't it? You wait. Yeah, it's going to be on the reds. It looked like it was going to be more the magentas, but no. And then just change that to something that fits with what you want. So let's bring that. I want it to be different, but I just don't want it to be quite as pink. There we go. There, lovely. And if you find bits like that, that's looking a little bit too much, a little bit too sort of rich and stark, I'm actually going to just go and attach another, I'm going to attach a curves layer to this one. And again, Alt to link it. Now your curves, okay, what are curves? Curves are, this is your white, as you see here, and this corner is your black, so in there is obviously your greys, your middles. So what that means is that if I do this, it will lighten off the dark parts. If I do this, it will darken off or lighten up the light parts, depending on which direction I drag it in. You see? And then this one will affect the middle. So, but by doing this, what I can do is, so for me, that black's a little bit harsh, so I'm going to knock that out, but I also want it to retain just a bit of depth overall. So I can do that. That just kind of just smooths it off. So you see, rather than just being this really big, really, really dark and really intensely orange, and you know, by doing that, I've killed two birds with one stone. Fabulous. So obviously I'm not here to teach you all about the functions of the different layers. I'm just here to show you, follow along. But I find it helps if you have at least a slight understanding of what you're doing and why it's doing what it's doing. Rather than just press that button and do this, because the images you choose may be different to the images I choose. So doing the exact same thing that I'm doing and putting that to 40 and that to 25 may not work for the images that you are using. So that's why I want you to try to understand what it's doing at its very basic level, obviously. Alright, so now we are going to just change the green on this one. Just those kind of greeny blue parts down there. So I am going to, there are other ways I could do this, and if I was doing a job for somebody I would do it using, you know, either my colour balances or my selective colours, but I am trying to keep this as user friendly as possible for you guys, so I'll just show you how to do it on this bit. So again, like before, we kind of went up here and we had a little look round. This is, I think this will probably come under cyans. I'm not working in my usual. Yeah, it's got cyans and greens in there. Okay, so we're going to take down the saturation of the cyans, and I think that's going to, yeah, be the greens. That's what I thought. So I'm just going to kind of bring down the saturation, just knock back how bright that green was, and again just kind of push it, let's see, over that way. Yeah, get it towards the, that's it, lovely. It just neutralises that from being that kind of bright, which obviously if you're happy with that, then, you know, with it being bright and green, then absolutely leave it like it. This is just because I'm going to use this particular sheet myself, so I'm obviously doing it how I will want mine to be. So again, I'm not happy with how green that is at all, so I'm going to do basically the same thing, and I'm going to just pop it in there, and I'm going to get my greens, and I'm just going to go, off you go a little bit. So not quite as green, but for this one's an interesting one, because this one I can also now do similarly to how I did above, where I'm just going to lighten that up as well, but keep these middle parts as they were. You see, like that. Okay. One last stage. If you want to do it, you don't have to do it. If you want that nice kind of, you know, you see the nice little shadow that crops up under things, it's very easy, I promise you. All we're going to do here is we're going to select one that we want. We are going to go to layer, layer style, drop shadow. Okay, and we're just going to pull it out of the way. Now, as you can see, that's way too much. We don't want all of that. So we're going to bring that distance right back. And we don't want it to spread out as far either. We want it to be just like just a little hint, you know, just like that. And then we're going to make it a little bit less opaque. So you're just going to have that. Okay. So you can do that if you want to on all of your layers. So then if we just did it on this one as well, because this will help me show that you can also then change the angle. So I don't know if you can actually see there whether that's obvious enough. So let me just bring that right in for you guys. So I can change the angle, and that will dictate how much, like it dictates literally the angle that the shadow is happening from, but that will affect all of them. So obviously if you want to, go ahead, do that on as many, or you know, as few of your layers as you want to. You don't, you know, it's not even like you had to do it on all of them if you didn't want to, because it can help make it look, you know, kind of a bit more layered, if anything, if you don't have it on absolutely everything. That's this. I have actually. Oh, I've put the same thing in there. We can't have that, can we? Okay, so we'll get rid of that one then. This is what happens when I am distracted by the how and not the what. Now, do I have that one in there? I don't think I have that one in there, but now I'm going to have to actually do it like this so I can see. I do not. Okay. In that case then, let's drag that one over there and pull it up, 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 all the way to the top so I know where it is. And then you guys know the drill by now. We're going to yoink that. Yoink. Yoink is such a great word, I don't know why. Okay. I'm going to make that about that size. And I will drag that one, there we go, Okay, that's fine. Right, so that solved the problem of, oh my God, Becca, how did you miss that? See, nobody's perfect. Not even me. I'm just going to make that one a little bit smaller. I'm also going to just make that one a little bit smaller as well, I think. All right, okay, and that one I'm going to just kind of get it behind. That's it. Yeah, lovely. Okay, that's got a much better overlay going on now. Excuse me. Right, so where were we? Drop shadows. So yeah, if you know the layer that you want to put it on, you can just drag it, or you can just randomly pick layers, you know, and drop a shadow on the ones that you want it to be on. Right, so I've gone ahead now and I've applied drop shadows where I want them. I just shoved this one down a little bit. I felt like it was just taking up a bit too much room up there. So it's one of those things when you start looking at the finer details, sometimes something like that will catch you and you'll just go, no, I don't like that. But you see, that is exactly why we keep everything on its own layer. If I'd merged that down earlier, I'd have had to go back, get the original file, cut out all the other bits where I didn't want it to be showing through. Whereas all I've had to do is just, move it and it's done. So non-destructive editing. Okay, so what we're going to do now to make it easier for if you do decide later on that you want to change everything or anything at all, you're going to go onto your uppermost layer and you're going to come down and select everything here to this point. Okay, so you're going to leave that background layer alone and we're going to right click and we're going to choose group from layers and we're going to call that group backgrounds. Okay, so now I've got a nice clean layer palette here and I know that if I did want to change anything in there, I've only got to go into this folder, and then click on what I want and go from there, kind of thing. So much easier. Now again, at this point we're going to save that and then we are going to add our next element. Now you'll see sometimes a lot of collages, they also have like a kind of a muted even sort of coloration over the top. I'll show you what I mean in case it's something you want to do. If you create a new layer here, we're going to hit G again for our paint bucket tool. And what I will do is I will use my Alt key again to bring up my sampler and I'm going to select that kind of neutral colour there. Click on my empty layer. I know it's all gone. Oh my God. So now all I've done there is I have, well, let me do it showing you actually. Okay, so I'm on there. I'm going to hit my V, my move tool, which is there now, and I'm going to hit number 2, which will change the opacity here to 20. And then as you can see, oh, I hadn't actually clicked out of it. That would not help matters at all there, Becca. So if I was to use 5, 6, you get the idea. So you can absolutely do that if you wanted to as well. So we'll leave that one there for now, see how it goes. So yeah, make sure you do save your file and let's get rid of that one. Right, so we are now done with that stage. We are now going to pick out what we want to be next. So now you're thinking things like, okay, because I've got all of those other kind of text-based things, I'm not really going to want any more text-based elements in there. Unless you wanted to, and I think I've got some in here. Yes, so unless, say, for example, you wanted like some sheet music, So if I was to grab this, as you can see, this is also on an overlay. So if I was to drag that in there, and then, you know, you might want to do that, you know, and just kind of, again, using your V tool and your number keys, you know, you might want to do something like that. Personally, I don't think it needs it when there's this amount of text already in the image, so I wouldn't be doing that myself. Okay, so we'll get rid of that now because we don't need it, don't want it to go away. Right, so now you're into, say for example, frames. Shall we have some, chuck a couple of frames in there? We've got some nice ones here. So we'll open that one, and pretty sure I want that one. That one I think is the same. Oh no, it's different. Okay, so yeah, we'll have that one and then we'll pick between the two. Right, now I know if you're anything like me, when I first started using these graphics programs, and I was thinking, I've got to try and get rid of all that white. No, no you don't. So we're just going to F screen that again. And then we're going to bring that down to the actual size that we're kind of going to want it to be at. So if we were to have that up there as a nice feature, for example, and then just make sure you apply that by hitting return. This is where this comes into play. So as you can see, if I use these options, that gets rid of all that white. It's gone, like it was never there, which is kind of wonderful, isn't it? You know, so you can have it so that it's really quite stark, you can have it so that it's a little bit, you know, that makes it warmer, you know, kind of thing, and just play around. I've sort of shown these in my previous tutorial as well. Play around, that's what they're there for. You know, have a little look, see what you like the most, what you want to use. So I'm now going to just lower the opacity of that one to about there, and I'm just going to, you know what, I'm going to put it there. I think it looks nice there for now, but again, for now, because I can move it. So we'll close that one down now. So let's see, shall we have flowers? Let's have some flowers. And this will not be staying pink, as I'm sure you've already guessed. So now that's quite a nice gap there to have something like some flowers sitting over the top of. So now is the perfect time to do something like that. But then I would look at that and think, well, okay, but now I don't want that to be quite as in line with that. So I might even just sort of take that so that it's just some of it and completely out of line with the other one. Something like that maybe. But again, I can change my mind later. And as I'm sure you probably remember by now, there are ways to change. Now again, you can also play with your blending layers because you can achieve, you know, different things. If you just wanted to make it white, for example, you know, and then play around with it that way, so you just had the shape, you could do that, you know, you could just make it a hint. There's all manner of things that you can do in the blend modes, you know, but they're not always the right way to go. Trial and error, experiment, it's fun. So now let's see, so we're going to use that, aren't we, to keep it easy for you guys. And again, I'm going to link that because I don't want it to affect everything else. So now I'm going to start off by just changing the hue, not the saturation. Now, don't worry about all that weird stuff going on there with all that. Do not worry, that's not going to stay like that, I promise you. And if you've watched the previous tutorial, you will probably already have a rough idea of what I'm going to tell you, because this already has what we call a layer mask on it. So that means that I can now, as that's white, that means it's showing everything, okay? But if I change my brush, hit B for brush, and if I hit my X key to make it go from white to black, I can then just paint out all of that effect on that part of the image. see? So it's not playing havoc and making everything really weird. Obviously I'm not being as precise as I would normally. I would normally be way more careful about what I'm doing here. This is just to show you. I will go and refine this more later, but this will just give you an idea that if you just do this, and again you might have to do it a few times, undo it a few times till you get the hang of doing it, that's fine. You know, oh, I've just knocked out a bit. And if you do make a mistake, go back onto a white brush, sorry, by hitting your X key again and just paint it back in. This is why we don't erase in Photoshop for the most part. Anything like this where we're editing, we do not use the eraser. We use masks and brushes. Okay, and that is why. Because now that does not affect anything that I don't want it to. You see, so if I take the mask away, there you go. Great, huh? So you can now, with that mask in place, you can tweak this bit further as well, which is kind of useful. So you can sit there and say, okay, well, I want that to be white. Okay, and you'll see there that that bit just changed slightly because I hadn't masked that out. So I can just go and take that out there. But the initial change that I made hadn't affected that bit enough for me to worry, but now it is. So now we'll just get in there and just tickle that out. So yeah, you can have the frame white, you can have it whatever colour you want, and on here you can also then decide to use the colorize feature, which will allow you to, if you up your saturation, you can change it to basically any colour that you so choose. Okay, so just playing around with the hue and the saturation will get you roughly where you want to be. But that's fine. That's fine, isn't it? So we will leave that where it is. Oh, she says, and then goes to move it anyway. I don't know what I was doing there, but clearly not that. Okay, so that's a couple of elements in there. Let's see, what else does... That frame is very similar to the other frame, so I'm not going to use both because I think that would be unwise. I am, however, going to use that one. Maybe that one. I'll see. I will see. That's what you say to your children, isn't it? We'll see. Can I have this? We'll see. Can I do that? We'll see. That's how it is. Right, so let's get that. See if I do indeed want to actually use that. Ooh, that's being a swine, isn't it? It's because I'm zoomed out too far, so I'm not actually picking it up when I'm trying to move it. So, shall we just play around with the opacity a bit there? Yes. Right, so that one can stay exactly where it is, and that's fine and dandy. We'll get rid of that. May or may not actually warrant using this other one, which is... I will stop picking up the wrong one at some point. Am I kidding? No, I won't. I fear it may be too similar to use both. Maybe too similar to the other one, and I'm not sure that I actually want that much of that kind of thing in there, or whether I just want it to be, or whether I prefer that one to that one, in fact. Oh no, oh no. But you see, this is what happened, you know, and it's great because this is design, and once you get the hang of it, you'll be doing exactly the same thing. And if you're already, you know, pretty okay at design but just don't know how to do this, then you will absolutely understand my struggles right now. Yes, I much prefer that one. Okay, that one's staying. We're fine. That one, I'm also going to just lower the opacity of that one a little bit more. I feel like it's still just a little bit too stark. Lovely. And now I'm going to save again. And then basically everything above that coloured background, I'm going to select. I'm going to hold the bottom one, hold down my shift key, select all of those. And then I'm going to right click and I'm going to group. And these are going to be, these are going to be the main elements. Right then, so that is frames. What other decorative elements might we want here? I'm thinking probably that nice clock. That's a nice clock. Although it looks like it's been distorted oddly. Never mind. Yes, nice clock. Maybe one of the chandelier. Maybe a chandelier. We have a chandelier. And I know it's green. I don't know. I don't know why some people make their PNGs green. I suppose because if it's on white it might be easy. If it's on a transparent background it might be easier to see, but then I say make it white and that makes it easier to see when it's previewing at you. Now that tells me then that that one I now actually do not want to be that big at all. Yes, that's better. Okay. So then I'm just going to have that bit, I think, and I'm going to go ahead and play with my blend modes again to get one that I'm happy with. I don't know why I went down there, that's no good to me at all down there. Yep, okay, so we're going to have it on linear burn. I might just nudge it up slightly. And to be honest with you, I think I should have kept that one in my main elements, I think. So if you've done the same, just hold it down and just drag it until you see a little box come up around your group and it will just drop it in there for you. So yeah, these should be in main elements, I think. Okay. So, oh, that went completely the wrong way. Now again, we're going to use the blend modes to just get that. And I think I'm just going to keep that one on multiply, and again just lower down the opacity of it slightly. And I'm not going to want the whole thing in there. I'm thinking just, you know, like just a corner kind of thing, just where you can see the hands, you know, and that kind of thing. And then I'm going to put a mask on that because I don't actually want the circle around the outside. So by applying a mask, and exactly the same as we did on that other frame image, I'm going to select my black paintbrush and I'm going to put that onto about 50% opacity, which is up here. Again, if you just hit 5, it will make it 50% for you. Because I don't know at this point if I want it just muted right back or if I want it completely gone. I think I want it completely gone, so so I'm going to set that to 100. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click. I'm going to make sure that my hardness is set to 0, and I'm going to want a big size because I want to feather the edge of it. So, you know, so what I mean by that is, if I was to go in now, even though the brush is set to soft, if I was to go in there, can you see how that line is still really, really noticeable? So basically, by using a large brush, and I'm just using that soft edge to just blend it away without that hard edge being left behind. So it becomes blended like so. And obviously there's still a bit dark because that edge generally is dark anyway. So we're just gonna go and feather that out a little bit like that. That just gives you a nice result. And then what I often do at this point is I will lower my opacity down to kind of 20, and then just again just kind of brush around just so that it really nicely fades out. And then 10 and a little bit further in. Okay, so that is now just sat there as a nice little bit. But as I explained in the last tutorial, if I decide that, oh, actually I've taken a bit more than I wanted to take, if I've erased it, I've got to go through all the undos, and that bit might have been a bit that I did first, and so I have to undo everything. This way you don't. You just, on your brush, you select a white brush instead, and I'm just going to go, okay, I want to bring back just 10%, just tickle that in 10% increments, just to bring that back slightly. And there you go, that's done for you. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. Now I think we are done with our main elements here. At this point, obviously, if you want to add some more flowers around, you can definitely do that. Let's have a little look. I know I've got some nice kind of transparent already PNG flowers, as you can see here. These are kind of overlays. If I drag one of those over, oh, it's got a really nice dragonfly on it as well. Or is that a damselfly? Can't really tell. Okay, but because that's on an overlay, you don't have to worry about changing the blend mode unless you want to, and you can absolutely get in there and, sort of throw some floral elements around however you see fit, if that's what you would like to do here. So let's see. I'm unsure because I've already got flowers over there, but by the same token it's kind of calling to me that that piece needs to kind of be there, and I don't know why. But I'm just going to roll with it because, it's telling me what it wants. It wants to be there, that's fine. Yes, that's what happens. It tells me what it wants. And then what about maybe this one? Let's see, shall we? That's a nice little one that could just kind of tuck up in there. And obviously you can change the size. You can, oh, I haven't actually done my Apple T to free transform that yet, so let's get back into the full screen and just right click there, and I'm just going to flip that the other way around because I like the way the shape goes that way. For that one, just bring it all back in. I might just have it crossing over the edge of that slightly just to give it some nice cohesion. Okay, how well are we doing here, guys? Let's now come out of flowers and we are going to look at some lace to throw around. Oh, there we go, it did it for me. I wasn't ready, it just did it. Okay, so yeah, I've just got some lace. So what I'm going to do with this one is I actually want that to be light, so I'm going to put that onto screen mode because it was quite dark, and I'm just going to kind of throw it in random places. Now as you can see, it didn't just stretch it at the same width. There's a good reason for this. I did explain it on the other video, but I'm going to explain it here in case you haven't seen. So as you can see, that looks nice, it's all there, it's lovely. I want it to be bigger, so by dragging any one of these, because Photoshop automatically constrains the proportions, which means it scales the height and the width at the same time for you. Now what many people do is they decide that they don't want to do that, and they'll do this, and that looks awful, absolutely atrocious. That looks just, if I just do it that way, yeah, there we go, It looks, it's terrible. You can get away with a little bit, you know, by all means, go a little bit. But once you start really, really distorting, it just looks awful. So I beg of you, please don't do it. If you're, especially if you're intending to sell, because I saw a kit the other day, a printables kit, and it was actually pictures of people. It was like Edwardian women, and the face had been dragged down and distorted, and yeah. Anyway, please don't do that. It makes Becca cry. And again, here you can play with the opacity as well. You don't have to leave it at 100. You can change it around. So I'm just going to dot a couple of pieces of that, just, you know, just generally around. So as you can see, that's really taking shape now. You know, we've gone from, I'm just going to select all of those. Sorry, I'm just going to group them while I think about it. And these are going to be my decorative elements. You know, we've kind of gone from, you know, that to that in very little time comparatively, getting all of those pieces in the background in the right places with the right changes. You know, that's the bit that takes the time. So, you know, and well, really, we started off with that. So but I decided not to have any of that showing through in the end anyway, but you absolutely can. That's why I like to have it there, as I say, as backup, just in case. Now, you then have another option, and I keep saying this to you guys, don't you? You now have another option. Well, it's because you do, and I want you to be aware of all of your options, you know, now, because why not? So if I was to just start a new layer here, so I've got lots of different brushes here that I know I can use commercially, and some I have to give credit for, so I keep them in separate folders so that I know, okay, these are the ones that come as standard with Photoshop, you know, up here, that's fine, but these are ones that I've downloaded myself. So, you know, you can absolutely, you can go in there with, you know, feather if you set your colour to a complementary colour to the rest of your image. So, you know, kind of a, if we get a kind of a nice neutralish brown, maybe, you know. Now, I know that looks huge, but trust me. So, if you could just drop that in there if you wanted to, that kind of thing. Then once it's in there and on its own layer, you can do exactly the same as you've done with everything else. So you can change the size of it, you can change the opacity of it, you know, kind of thing. So there is absolutely nothing stopping you doing that. And then if you are that annoying person that I am and you go, ooh, that would look nice, I'm going to put that over there. When you're using brushes, make sure that you create a new layer for your new brush, because it is a new element. And as you can see here, you know, I've got sort of all manner of different kind of brushes. I'm just going to take the size of that right down, because they automatically load in enormously and you really don't want that most of the time, but there you go, that's kind of nice. I actually quite like that one. I think I'll keep it. I think I'll shove it over there, and I'll knock the opacity down again, V and then a number. Lovely, absolutely lovely. More than happy with that there. So as you see, you can build up more and more layers with more and more brushes, you know, and then at the end you can just put those in another group that says brushes. So if you decide that you really want the rest of it, but you know, you want it to have a different type of brushes put in, you can just hide the brushes group, you know. Like you can hide the decorative elements all at once, you can hide your main elements all at once, hide your backgrounds all at once, you know. So you can chop and change without having to redo the entire thing from scratch. You can just go, okay, well, I don't want those brushes in anymore, or, you know, get rid of those, put different ones in. So, guys, I obviously really hope that, you know, you found this useful. I hope that you'll go away with at least a rough idea of what the heck Becca was waffling about today. There we go, guys. I'm going to say that. I'm going to call that a day now. If you have enjoyed it, if you've learnt new tricks and tips, leave me a comment. Leave me some feedback just generally in the comments. Let me know whether or not, you know, there's something specific you'd like to see, whether there's something you felt I didn't describe well enough a process that I was doing, and I can absolutely then go back and, you know, I can edit that. That's not a problem. I want it to be as user friendly as possible for all of you to get to grips with. If there's, yeah, saying if there's something specific that you want to see done as a tutorial specifically, then tell me that as well. Leave me a thumbs up, because they are what keep my videos in people's feeds. So, you know, that's really important for me to be able to grow this and help everybody. So please do give it a thumbs up if you did indeed enjoy it. And I would love to see your creations, so I will link in the description to the groups that I'm in and my own groups. Feel free to come and share what you've done, tag me in posts on the groups. I'll come and have a look and go, oh wow, look what you did, I taught you to do that, and I can feel all proud of myself and proud of you, and it's just wonderful, isn't it? And yeah, have a good one, guys. I'll see you in the next video, whatever that may be. God help us all. Take care.